In this video, we are going to learn about style attribute in JSX. So style attribute in JSX is similar to HTML style attribute, with the only difference is that generally it takes objects instead of CSS strings, and we will also see that CSS properties are using camel case valid names rather than the normal hyphenated props which are available in CSS. Okay, so before we start, let me remind you that regarding styles, we already have a video where we discussed CSS modules, right? You can go and check out that video if you are not already aware of that. But the point is that in that video, we discussed that there are some other ways which are actually more preferred. So the style attribute which I'm going to talk about right now is sort of the last resort. In fact, you should use either normal CSS import, which is something like this, that there is some component and you can directly import and then whatever class names are here, then that you can directly use in class name attribute, right? However, the most preferred way is using CSS modules, which on which we have a separate video altogether, where instead of something .css, you create a CSS file with .module.css, and after that, whatever is your class name, that you can access as whatever some name you import and then dot that thing, right? So it will create dynamically BEM syntax for you, which is internally used in CSS modules. And then in that case, this is much better. We have discussed in that video a lot of advantages, because unused styles can be easily removed, and all the styles are related to particular component only. So all those advantages come with that. However, that's not the point. For the sake of completeness, we wanted to discuss the final syntax. This should be used as a last resort, which is equivalent to inline. So inline styles, you remember that in HTML also we have something like, let's say I have a div, and in that I have written something hello world. Then you remember that we had some style attribute where is equal to, and here in string you used to write something like let's say color red. Okay, in string we used to write, but this is not HTML, this is JSX. So here this syntax will not work. Rather, what is going to happen is that instead of this, you are going to use an object. Okay, inside that you can, so let's say style, my style or something, right? And then this my style you can define anywhere. So let's say, and this is an object where that object will be color, let's say blue or something like that. So you understand that this is now a proper JavaScript object with whatever you used to write here, the pairs of values, property and values in CSS, that you write as a JavaScript object. Okay. Now if you pass that here, then that style will be applied. So for example, right now if we will see, then we will have this thing, hello world. So you can imagine that if we don't have this thing, or let's say this is just an empty object, then no style will be applied. Then you can see that this is black, but when I pass this, then it will become blue. Okay. Secondly, what happens is that when we are using this here, then you might think that, yeah, this is getting complicated, right? So you can simply copy it, and rather than using a separate variable, you can also paste it directly here. So you can understand many places you will see this double curly braces, okay, in style always, right? So that simply means that this first curly braces is just for any value. So you know that if you are using string, then you can use anything, right? But if you are and that should not be used in style, but for other attributes, you, for example, if ID is there, then you remember that string you have to use, right? But instead of, if you're not using string, then in JSX we use this curly braces sort of syntax, and now you can use any variable or value for that word. So you can use 1 to 3, you can use a variable, something called my ID, and then my ID is a separate variable or a value. So here in this case, the value in case of style is an object. So either you can create, you can have a object which is separately declared, and that variable you can use, or you can write an object itself here, That's what I wanted to say, that this first curly braces is for any value to use, any JavaScript value to use, you should use curly braces, and the second curly braces is essentially just JavaScript object, and that's how it works. So you'll save this and you'll see that this is also working fine. So we discussed that this is inline style, and all the with the only difference that instead of strings we will use this thing. But if you actually see the DOM, then it will be string only, because this is JSX. Ultimately it has to be converted to DOM, right? So if you see in actual DOM, yeah, then you will see that yeah, you will see that whatever thing we did color blue, that ultimately became string only, color blue. And this transformation obviously React will automatically do that for you. Apart from that, above you can see that this p thing is like, oh yeah, normal, right? Because we simply passed it like this, and the style is red because I believe automatically somewhere in p the color is red, and that's why here we are seeing that this color is red. But again, like HTML, we know that inline styles will have the highest priority. Similarly, you can put a similar style tag here also, okay, and then you can make anything. So let's say this thing is green, not red. So red was coming from outside, that is fine, that is the outer priority, but the highermost priority will be the inline style. So you can see that now that color will become green, okay. Now you might understand that, yeah, this is fine, but this is used for quick and dirty way, just so that you can quickly get rather than writing something and using that style name as class name here or something, we can simply do this. But to tell you the truth, actually this is less powerful than actually using something in CSS. By less powerful, I mean that in HTML also we saw that inline styles are taking the highest priority, but it is less powerful in the sense that some advanced features of CSS, I think, which we have not discussed right now, something called media query, where your CSS will dynamically you can dynamically decide what should be the CSS based on the screen size. So for this much width the style should be different, let's say, and if for mobile devices your style should be different. If that sort of thing you are trying to do, that is called media query, which we'll learn later. But that sort of thing, those sort of features are not available in style attribute, but they're available only in files, and then obviously that you can use using either normal import or using CSS modules. So that's what you should use if you have advanced requirements. Okay, now this style syntax is generally used for dynamically computing styles at render time, which means that let's keep it red only for this example. I will just work with this hello world. So let's say let's pass some props, okay. So we already are passing some prop, I believe n, and that n you can change. So let's firstly print here only what is the value of props dot n. Yeah, so it is 15 and then you can change n. Yeah, so something like that. It is starting with some value 15. Yeah, that is fine. But the point is that let's say your requirement is that if this thing is odd, this props.n is odd, then the color should be blue. Otherwise the color should be let's say red only, or green, let's say. Then that's the most common use case of this inline style, that you can use it dynamically. So for example, const my color, and then you can dynamically use it. So let's say then when props.n, let's say when this thing is even, so when the mod 2 equal to 0 and this thing is even, then I'm going to use let's say green, otherwise I'm going to use blue, okay. And then here we are using hard coding a particular value. Now we can also use this dynamic value, okay. And now you can see that initially it will be 15, okay. Let's see, initially it will be 15, and that's why this thing is blue. But if I change it to 16, it becomes even, and that's why it is green. If it is 17, then again it is odd, and that's why it is blue. So now you can understand that this sort of dynamic behavior you can achieve. And again, you could have used simply this as a color, and then you can use the shortcut syntax of ES6, that directly this will also work. Okay, so that is fine. Yeah. Apart from that, one more important thing is that the so right now let's use a normal constant value. Apart from the and second thing is that we have to use camel case values always, which means that in normal CSS we had what we had names like background color, but the background color used to be hyphenated, if you remember, right? So for example, if you write here something like this, then it will be like this, which is background hyphen color, right? But in case of this JSX style object with style attribute, you have to use it as camel case, because you understand it is easier in JSON. JSON keys are complicated, right? So you then you would have to use this value is not hyphenated values are not valid as keys. Then you would have to use this sort of key inside string you should use, right? And that's why the convention which React gave us is that convert everything into camel case. Okay, so if a single value is there only without any hyphen, then it does not make any difference, right? But if multiple hyphenated values are there, then that will change to camel case, and after that whatever you can use. So let's say pink is my background color. Okay, so now you will see that my background color is pink. Okay, fine. And in that sort of manner, like if a couple of values are there, then it's fine to write it here. But you understand that if there are multiple values and they are getting bigger, then you can use simply like this. Okay, and then you can, let's say it is going too long, then you can here use something like this. Anyways, you can use multi-line thing here also, but then it will just make the JSX in multiple lines, and that you can use, that's fine, which means that something like this you can use here also, but then you have to properly indent it, otherwise it will not look good. Okay, so that is fine, and now you can see that this still works, and the color is blue static and the background color is pink static. But obviously I will not go through all the CSS properties. This is just like how to use CSS, and if for that matter anything, for example, let's say background image, or for that matter anything in CSS which unless it is supported, because I told you that advanced things are not supported. Most of the things which are normal CSS props, they will already be supported, and you can write it like this inline, and they will work mostly out of the box. But you might think that yeah, so whenever I need some dynamic thing, so something like this, okay, then I need this inline style. Okay, but yeah, means you can see that yeah, that is fine, but it does not mean that this is the only way to do dynamic styles, right? You might think something like that, okay, what if I have let's say let's say two various styles, and that I switch. So rather than using this, you can also use something like this, that what I will do is that I will have something like my style. I will have a const variable my style, and then this my style will be rather than style attribute, I will use the class name. I'm just trying to show you that there are other ways also to do it, right? And that class name has to be a variable so that I can change it dynamically, and then based on this thing you can choose different class name, right? So if it is even, then let's say I'm using style 2. There is some class name is there, style 2. Okay, and otherwise let's say I'm using style 1. Okay, so the whole point is that dynamically based on odd and even, this thing will change to style 2 and style 1, and then you can very well use those things here. So for example, let's say style 1 is I don't know, color blue, and then style 2 is color green. Okay, and then this thing is changing, so you can see that you'll see that this thing is still works exactly the same way. But again, and then you can use the same thing here. So let's say in both cases, you are using background color pink. And now you can understand that, yeah, so essentially if you think that and again you know that in CSS it is something like this rather than in quotes. Okay, so you have to take care of those things. And again, if the multiple things are same and a few things are only different, then you can bring the whole thing in a separate style. Okay, so now you can understand that that thing was working, whatever thing, but here I am trying to have a separate style. Let's say common style, whatever. Okay, and in that you can use here, and this you can use anyways, and you can only use something like this. So you understand basically what is, or it is not a variable, it is a constant, so rather use something like this. So you can understand that this inside div, this common style and style 1 is applied. When I change n, then common style and style 2 is applied. So again, you can play around with it in any way, but the main idea is that this sort of thing, the dynamic style thing, is not some special feature of style attribute only. You can use it in any other way. Okay, so that is the one thing. Now this switching of styles, we know that this is a very common requirement, because that is essentially how we are trying to do in modern day React applications, because things has to be calculated on the fly. There are some libraries also, and there are some popular technologies like something called CSS in JS, which if you can, the terminology is something like this you can Google around it, but there are some advanced libraries which you can use, and there is something called style components or something which allow you to use create new style actually in the fly in the components also, but they are slightly advanced, and we might look into it later. Okay, but base idea is that normal style attribute we can use, we can use, with the slight difference that it is going to be camel cased prop names, and this will be an object rather than a string. And let's remove that thing because we don't need these things now. Okay, so this should be fine. Next, what we are going to do is that we can have numeric values inside the this thing also. So for example, let's have a particular more thing. So let's have border 1 pixel solid red or something like that. So now we will have a border, right? But what if we don't want this thing to be like whole width? Let's say we want it to be only till, let's say I don't know, like 200 pixels. So we can have width 200 pixels, and then you can see that it is only till this much, right? But what you have to understand is that this pixel thing, what we are writing here, is actually not compulsory. If we don't write anything, we simply write number 200, then this will be equivalent to 200 pixel. In fact, you will see that when this thing gets translated, then actually automatically this 200 thing is being treated as, you can see that it is being treated as 200 pixel. Okay, however, if you want, you can use pixel yourself also, but if you want to use something other than pixel, So for example, I don't know, 10 rem, it will be 16 or so something. Let's have 15 rem, something like this. Then this, you can understand that this 15 rem, rem em percentage, so let's say 40% you want to use. If you want to use any unit which is other than pixels, then you have to use strings. For pixels also you can use strings, but if you don't use anything, then also it's by default pixel. Okay. So yeah, that will be a sort of a brief introduction to this style attribute. You can obviously write them everything inline only, but I prefer to use it in a separate thing until unless it's just one of styles which you just want to add in some particular element. Other than that, it should be fine. Okay. So yeah, that's it. That's a brief intro to normal style attribute. See you in the next one.